Have you ever felt something shift deep inside you, without any warning, without any sound? Just a quiet presence wrapping around your heart like a whisper from eternity. It's not something you can explain, and it's not something the world will ever fully understand. But when it happens, your soul knows God is near. You might be walking through one of the darkest chapters of your life. You're tired. You've been strong for too long. You've smiled through pain. You've carried the weight of your own world while trying to hold up everyone else's too. And then, in the silence, without a sign or a reason, peace touches you. Not the kind that comes from having everything figured out, but the kind that doesn't need answers. The kind that tells your soul, I am here. That's not a coincidence. That's not a motivational phrase. That's a miracle. That's what it feels like when the divine steps close. People search the world for miracles, loud, bright, explosive signs. But the real ones, they're quiet. They show up in your heart. They don't shout, they whisper. They don't come when you're at your strongest. They arrive when you're about to break. And suddenly you feel held, not by people, not by circumstances, but by something higher. That is the power of presence. That is what happens when God walks into your storm. Human psychology tells us that the body responds to safety even before the mind registers it. That's why trauma makes you tense. It's why uncertainty makes you panic. But when you feel God's nearness, something shifts biologically. Your nervous system starts to calm, your breathing slows, your thoughts begin to settle, and without even realizing it, you're healing. That's not magic. That's divine timing aligned with your emotional core. That's what every soul craves. Peace without explanation, strength without effort, healing without noise. You might not see a burning bush or hear a voice from heaven, but you will feel your fears loosen their grip. You will feel something sacred awaken in the places that have been asleep for years. You will stop needing to control everything, and instead, you'll start to trust the timing of what you cannot see. That moment right there is not weakness. It's not giving up. It's surrender. And surrender is not losing. Surrender is the deepest kind of strength. It's the point where your ego stops fighting and your soul starts breathing. There's something powerful about the stillness that follows pain. It's in that stillness where God often shows up, not always to change your situation immediately, but to change you in the middle of it. That's the real miracle. Not the storm going away, but you standing in the storm and realizing it doesn't own you anymore. That's when you know God is close, closer than the thoughts in your head, closer than the breath in your lungs, closer than the fear trying to paralyze you. Sometimes we look for confirmation, for signs, for something to prove to us that we're not alone. But the truth is, if you pay attention, the signs are already there. They show up in your resilience, in the way you keep showing up, even when you feel empty, in the strength that doesn't make sense, in the comfort that comes when no one else is around. That's the evidence, not in fireworks, but in faith, not in a voice you hear, but in a feeling you can't deny. And here's the reward for listening closely. If you open your heart right now and stay with this message, you're going to walk away with more than motivation. You're going to feel awakened. You're going to feel less alone, because you'll begin to see how close he's been this whole time, even when you didn't feel him, even when you were drowning in doubt, even when life felt unfair. His silence wasn't absence. It was strategy. Sometimes he hides, not to punish you, but to strengthen your vision so that when he shows up, you know. So if you've been searching for answers, if your heart has been exhausted, if you've prayed for a sign, pause, breathe, listen. What you're looking for isn't always out there. It's already inside you. It's that whisper in the middle of your chaos, that steady heartbeat that refuses to quit. That's what happens when God is near. You don't just feel different. You become different. Not louder, not harder, but softer, stronger, deeper, more peaceful, more certain of who you are and whose you are. And if you stay with this moment, if you really open your spirit, you'll begin to see that you were never alone in the first place. What you feel right now, that stirring in your chest, that is not emotion. That is alignment. That is your soul responding to truth. Because when God is near, you don't need proof. You just know. Have you ever felt peace in a place where fear once lived? That's not an accident. That's a sign. When God is near, one of the first things that enters your life is a peace that doesn't match your surroundings. You could be standing in the middle of chaos with storms breaking around you, and yet deep inside, there's calm, a stillness that doesn't make sense. It's not because the problems disappeared, it's because something greater stepped in. This peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just slips into your soul and settles there. It softens the fear. It steadies your hands. It reminds your heart that no matter how out of control life feels, there's a power holding everything together. That's what true peace does. It shifts your focus from the storm to the one who walks with you through it. Psychologists will tell you about the nervous system, how fear activates survival mode, how stress floods your body with adrenaline. But when God is close, something higher takes over. Your body still remembers the anxiety, but your spirit starts to lead. You stop reacting to everything. You start choosing your response. You begin to breathe again. You begin to trust. You don't have to fight for this peace. You don't have to earn it. It comes when you let go. When you finally stop trying to fix everything on your own. When you fall to your knees, not in weakness, but in surrender. That's where the miracle happens. That's when heaven starts moving. This peace will confuse people. They'll wonder how you're holding it together. They won't understand why you're not breaking under pressure, but you'll know. You'll know that what's keeping you together isn't willpower, it's presence. The presence of a power that goes beyond human strength. The kind of presence that whispers, "You're safe. I've got you." And the longer you stay in this peace, the more it grows. It becomes your anchor, your foundation. It doesn't mean you won't feel pain, but it means pain won't control you. You've tasted peace that doesn't come from this world. That's how you know God is near. There comes a moment when strength shows up, and you have no idea where it came from. You were tired, worn out, ready to give up, yet somehow you kept moving. That's not just resilience, that's not just grit, that's divine strength rising inside you when your own has run out. It doesn't come from your body. It doesn't come from motivation or mindset tricks. It comes from a deeper source, the quiet power that awakens when God is near. You begin to walk through things that should have broken you. You start to face situations that used to make you crumble, and instead of falling apart, you rise. You wake up stronger than the pain. That's the miracle. Not that life got easier, but that you became more powerful in the middle of it. And that power didn't come from pretending everything's fine. It came from surrendering your weakness and receiving strength that doesn't make sense. This kind of strength is different. It's not loud or aggressive. It's steady, unshakable. People around you may not notice it at first, but you will. You'll feel it in the way you show up, in the way you hold yourself together, in the way you keep your heart soft, while everything around you tries to harden it. That's not normal strength. That's sacred. Psychologically, when people hit breaking points, their minds and bodies begin to shut down. But when you're spiritually aligned, something new activates inside of you, a deeper will, a fire that doesn't burn out. You might still feel tired, but you're not finished. You're still standing, still showing up. And every step forward becomes proof that you're not walking alone. You won't always see this strength coming. It won't always feel like victory. But you'll know it's real because you'll stop being shaken by things that used to destroy you. You'll smile, not because everything is perfect, but because you've survived what once seemed impossible. And in that moment, you'll realize this is what it feels like when divine strength takes over. When God is near, your weakness becomes the doorway to power, not your power, His, and that changes everything. There comes a point where you stop forcing and things just start to flow. Not because you gave up, but because something greater stepped in. When God is near, you don't have to chase every opportunity. You don't have to beg for open doors. They begin to unlock on their own. What once felt blocked begins to move. What once felt out of reach starts to align. This isn't luck. It's alignment with something higher than your own plans. You'll notice how situations begin to shift without you pushing. The right people enter your life at the right time. Conversations happen that you didn't expect. Resources show up out of nowhere. That's what happens when divine timing takes over. It feels like favor. It feels like grace. And the truth is, when you are aligned with purpose and presence, life doesn't feel like a battle. It feels like a rhythm. Psychology talks about the burnout that comes from constant striving. When you live in survival mode, your nervous system is always activated. You grind, you hustle, but nothing feels enough. Yet when you let go of control, when you stop chasing and start trusting, your body and mind begin to heal. You move from anxiety to flow, from fear to faith. This doesn't mean you stop working. It means you stop working against the current. You stop knocking on doors that were never yours. You stop begging to be seen by people who were never meant to walk with you. You begin to walk with clarity, knowing that what's meant for you doesn't need to be forced, it will find you. And when those doors open, they don't just open, they stay open, because they weren't pushed by your hand. They were opened by divine authority. That's the kind of breakthrough that lasts. That's the kind of success that brings peace, not pressure. So if you've been striving, if you've been running yourself into the ground just to feel worthy, maybe it's time to pause. Maybe it's time to trust the flow. Because when God is near, you don't have to chase the blessing. The blessing starts chasing you. As life begins to align and blessings start to unfold, something else happens. People start falling away. Not just any people, but the ones you thought were permanent, the ones you trusted, the ones you leaned on. At first, it feels like loss. It feels like rejection. But if you look closer, you'll see it for what it truly is, protection. When God is near, He doesn't just add, He subtracts. He removes what's not meant for your future, not to hurt you, but to heal you. There are people who can't go where you're going. Their energy, their mindset, their intentions don't align with the next level of your life. And when God draws closer, He begins to clean your space. He takes away distractions, disloyalties, and emotional weights disguised as relationships. It's painful because your heart doesn't always understand what your spirit already knows. Psychology teaches us that we cling to familiarity, even when it's unhealthy. We hold on to people who validate our wounds. But spiritual growth demands separation. It requires you to let go of who you were. And that often means letting go of who kept you there. It's not personal. It's preparation. You'll begin to notice how peaceful you feel when certain people leave. That's not bitterness. That's clarity. You're no longer shrinking to fit into spaces that couldn't hold your growth. You're no longer tolerating energy that drains you. That's a sign that healing has started. That's a sign that God is removing the noise so you can hear His voice more clearly. And even though your heart may ache in the process, you'll find a strange relief, a freedom that was hiding behind the fear of being alone. But you're not alone, you're being positioned. God clears the room before He reveals the blessing. He pulls you away from the wrong voices so you can finally hear the right one, His. So if you're losing people, don't panic. Don't chase. Don't beg. Trust the distance. Trust the silence. Because when God is near, anything or anyone not aligned with your peace, your purpose, and your protection will start to fall away. And that's not the end. That's the beginning of something sacred. When God is near, your mind begins to clear in ways you didn't know were possible. The fog starts lifting. The overthinking begins to fade. You're no longer trapped in a loop of fear, doubt, and what ifs. Suddenly you can see, not with your physical eyes, but with your spirit. Clarity becomes your new normal. And with it comes a sharpness, a vision, of purpose, of identity. You stop second-guessing yourself. You start trusting your inner knowing. This isn't just spiritual, it's psychological. When the mind is overwhelmed, it becomes reactive, scattered, and anxious. But when safety enters, real emotional safety, your brain calms down. Your thoughts begin to align. That's why when the presence of God is close, your entire mental space begins to transform. You don't need all the answers. You just need alignment. That alignment brings peace, and peace brings clarity. You begin to see patterns you couldn't see before, toxic habits, cycles you kept repeating. You recognize the truth hiding in your pain. You realize who you are without the noise of insecurity and the weight of past wounds. That's the power of divine clarity. It doesn't just show you where you are, it shows you where you're meant to be. This kind of vision makes you bold. It makes you calm. You no longer feel the need to rush. You no longer fear being behind. You realize everything is happening on time, and you're exactly where you need to be. That realization breaks anxiety. It silences the pressure. It opens your eyes to the purpose in your pain and the message in your mess. And once your vision clears, your steps become stronger. You no longer move out of desperation. You move with direction. You stop reacting. You start creating. You don't chase what doesn't feel right. You wait for what aligns. That's wisdom. That's power. That's the kind of mindset that changes everything. So if you feel your mind quieting, if you feel your thoughts beginning to align, don't question it. Embrace it. Because when God is near, confusion begins to break. The fog lifts, and you don't just see life differently. You see yourself differently, with purpose, with clarity, with the eyes of someone who knows they're being led by something greater. Something shifts when you stop needing the world to validate who you are. That shift isn't pride, it's healing. It's the quiet confidence that grows inside you when God is near. You no longer wait for someone else to see your worth. You stop depending on applause to feel valuable. You start walking like someone who already knows they're chosen. That's not ego, that's identity. And it's the kind of power that cannot be faked. When your confidence comes from God, it's different. It's not loud or arrogant. It's not about proving anything. It's rooted in peace. It's grounded in knowing that you are loved even when you are unseen. Psychology calls it self-worth. Faith calls it identity in the spirit. Either way, it's real, and it changes the way you move through the world. You'll notice that you stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop over-explaining your boundaries. You stop saying yes just to avoid disappointment. That's growth. That's God teaching you that you don't have to trade your peace for people's approval. You begin to carry yourself like someone who knows they've survived storms, been through fire, and still came out glowing. This inner confidence doesn't come from achievements or status. It comes from being deeply connected to your source. When you know who you are in God's presence, rejection no longer defines you. Silence no longer scares you. Failure no longer breaks you. You become anchored, and the world can't shake what's anchored in truth. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You just need to walk in the light of who you really are, and the more time you spend in that presence, the more you begin to feel at home inside yourself. That's the miracle. Not becoming someone new, but returning to who you were always meant to be before the world told you otherwise. So when that confidence rises in you, when your head lifts without effort, when your steps feel steady, don't question it. That's not just personal growth, that's spiritual alignment. That's what it feels like when God is near and your identity finally starts to match your destiny. Something beautiful happens when you stop holding on to anger. When God is near, your heart starts to soften. Not because the pain didn't happen, not because the wound didn't cut deep, but because you're no longer willing to carry the weight of bitterness. You begin to forgive, not for them, but for you. Not because they apologized, but because your healing matters more than your hurt. That's the miracle. That's the power of divine presence. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It's not pretending everything is okay. It's releasing yourself from the emotional prison that someone else built. Psychology shows that holding on to resentment creates stress in the body. It keeps your mind stuck in the past. But when you forgive, you take your power back. You begin to breathe again. You stop bleeding from wounds that should have been scars by now. You'll notice how your spirit becomes lighter, how your reactions change, how your peace becomes harder to disturb. That's not weakness. That's strength on a level most people will never understand. Because anyone can stay angry. Anyone can hold a grudge. But it takes divine courage to let go. It takes real maturity to stop replaying the betrayal and start writing a new story. This kind of healing doesn't happen through willpower alone. It happens when God begins to touch the parts of you that no one else sees. The bitterness you never talked about. The grudges you justified. The pain you buried. He doesn't force you to forgive. He gives you the strength to want to. And once you do, freedom begins. You'll start to see the people who hurt you differently. Not as powerful, but as broken. Not as enemies, but as lessons. That shift is everything, because it means the pain no longer controls your perception. You've risen above it. You've grown past it. And now you're walking in peace they can't take from you. So if your heart is beginning to let go, even just a little, honor that. That's not just personal growth. It's spiritual breakthrough. That's what it looks like when God is near. He doesn't just heal your circumstances. He heals your soul. And in that healing, you begin to live free, truly free. Sometimes life feels like a battlefield. You're surrounded by chaos, uncertainty, and pressure from every side. But somehow, you're still standing. You're still breathing. You've been through storms that should have destroyed you, yet here you are. That's not coincidence. That's protection. When God is near, you are covered. Even when you don't see it, even when everything feels like it's falling apart, something is holding you together. There were moments when it could have gone worse. Accidents that didn't happen. Decisions you almost made but didn't. People who were removed without your understanding. Delays that frustrated you but later saved you. That's not just life, that's divine defense. You may not have noticed it in the moment, but when you look back, you'll see the pattern. You'll see how close danger came and how it missed you. That's grace. That's mercy. That's God keeping you even in silence. Your mind may try to explain it, but deep down, your spirit knows. That sudden peace when you should be panicking. That strange calm in the middle of the storm. That invisible barrier between you and what should have broken you. Science can't always explain it, but faith recognizes it immediately. It's not just good luck, it's sacred protection. It's the unexplainable peace that shows up when you're walking through fire but not getting burned. This protection doesn't mean life will always be easy. It means you'll be carried through the hard parts. You may feel pressure, but you won't be crushed. You may be shaken, but you won't be destroyed, because what surrounds you is stronger than what's attacking you. And when you are wrapped in that kind of covering, fear loses its grip. You begin to walk with a quiet confidence, knowing you are not alone in any battle. So when you look around and see things falling apart, don't assume you've been abandoned. Look closer. You're still standing. That alone is proof that you're being kept, protected, watched over, not by luck, not by chance, but by a presence so powerful that nothing formed against you can win. When God is near, even the battle becomes part of the blessing. When God is near, you begin to trust your inner voice in a way that surprises even you. That quiet gut feeling, the subtle nudge becomes louder and clearer. You start sensing what is right and what is not, even when logic or others' opinions say otherwise. This is not coincidence. This is divine guidance waking up inside you, leading you with a wisdom that transcends human understanding. Your intuition becomes sharper because your spirit is tuned into something greater than yourself. You no longer second-guess decisions as much. You feel a deeper knowing, a connection to truth that you can't explain with words, but you feel deeply in your bones. This guidance protects you from harm and directs you toward what will help you grow. Psychology shows us that intuition is the brain's way of quickly processing past experiences and emotions to make fast judgments. But when God is near, this intuition is elevated beyond just experience or emotion. It becomes inspired insight, a spiritual compass that keeps you steady even when everything around you is uncertain. You will notice this in subtle ways: a hesitation before a bad decision, a sudden clarity when confusion ruled before, a peace about choices that used to fill you with anxiety. This kind of intuition does not cause fear, it calms fear. It doesn't pressure you, it guides you gently but firmly. Sometimes you might not understand why you feel pulled toward certain paths or away from others. That is faith whispering in your heart. That is divine wisdom steering your course. It may not always make sense in the moment, but it will always lead you toward life, purpose, and peace. Trust this growing inner voice. Listen to it, even when it challenges what you've known. Because when God is near, your intuition is more than a feeling. It is a powerful tool, a spiritual gift, and following it can change your life forever. When God is near, something powerful awakens inside you, a pull toward a purpose greater than yourself. You wake up each morning with a new hunger, a fresh drive that didn't come from your own willpower. It's as if a silent force is guiding your steps, urging you forward, even when the path feels unclear or the obstacles seem too big. This isn't just motivation, it's divine momentum. Your heart begins to beat in rhythm with a calling that you might not have fully understood before. The days of feeling lost, stuck, or meaningless start to fade away. Instead, you find yourself drawn to things that bring meaning. You start making choices that align with who you were created to be, even if they don't make sense to everyone else. This pull toward purpose is a sign that God is close, moving in your life, directing your journey. You might still face doubts and fears, but they no longer have the power to stop you. That deep hunger inside burns brighter than the noise of uncertainty. It pushes you to step out, to grow, to embrace challenges as opportunities instead of threats. This inner drive isn't about ambition fueled by ego. It's about awakening to a life that matters, a life that touches others and fulfills your deepest desires. Psychology teaches us that having a clear sense of purpose can improve your mental health, boost your resilience, and increase your happiness. Spiritually, purpose connects you to your destiny. It gives you a reason to keep going when the world tells you to quit. When God is near, that sense of purpose doesn't come from your circumstances or achievements. It comes from a divine spark within, a calling that won't be silenced. You will notice subtle changes. You'll start dreaming bigger dreams. You'll find courage in places where you once felt fear. You'll attract people and opportunities that align with your vision. Life begins to unfold in a way that feels guided and intentional. So if you feel that pull inside, whether faint or strong, don't ignore it. That is your soul remembering its mission. That is the gentle voice of God inviting you to step into your true calling. And when you answer, everything changes. When God is near, something changes in the energy you carry. People notice it even if they can't explain why. They might say you look different, like you're glowing from the inside out. This isn't about makeup or clothes or anything external. It's a light that shines through your spirit, a light of peace, strength, and hope that touches everyone around you. This glow is not just a feeling, it's a visible sign of transformation. When you are connected to something greater, your whole being begins to reflect that connection. Your face softens, your eyes hold more kindness, your smile becomes genuine. This radiant energy attracts others, not because you are trying to impress, but because you are simply being who you truly are. Science calls this emotional contagion. When someone feels calm and positive, it spreads to those around them. But what makes this glow different is that it comes from a deeper place than just happiness or good moods. It comes from the soul being at rest and in alignment with divine presence. It's a peace that stays even when storms come. This inner light does more than change how you look. It changes how you live. Your words become softer but more powerful. Your actions are fueled by purpose, not by fear or doubt. You walk with a confidence that doesn't need to shout to be heard. People can feel your strength without you saying a word. Even in difficult times, this glow doesn't disappear. It becomes a beacon for those around you who are lost or hurting. You become a source of hope simply by existing. That's the true power of being near to God. Your spirit shines so brightly that it lights the way for others. If you notice this light growing within you, nurture it. Protect it from negativity. Feed it with faith and gratitude. Because this is not just a temporary feeling. This is your spirit coming alive. This is the unmistakable sign that God is near, and you are walking in the fullness of your true self.